Welcome to The Explainer. You know, history usually remembers the loud stuff, right? The kings, the epic battles, the grand, sweeping victories, but it rarely ever remembers the real estate transactions. We tend to hyper-focus on those massive moments, but sometimes the absolute biggest turning points in history actually come through the quiet, totally unrecorded generosity of a completely ordinary person. So today, we're breaking down a really fascinating historical and biblical account from 2 Samuel chapter 24. It's the story of a guy named Araunah. He was an ordinary man whose quiet generosity, mixed with a king's bold sacrifice, literally shaped history forever. All right, let's dive into this.
Honestly, have you ever wondered how one simple, everyday act of generosity could echo through millennia? Because we're about to look at an event that started with a terrible national crisis, but actually ended up determining the very geographic center of worship for generations of God's people. We are talking about massive historical stakes born out of a really simple, brief interaction.
Let's start by looking at Section 1, a devastating royal mistake. So to really understand the weight of this story, we've got to look at the macro crisis that sets up our whole stage. It begins during a pretty dark chapter in Israel's history. First, King David orders a census of his people. Now, in this specific context, that wasn't just, a simple matter of keeping records. It was an act that reflected a seriously misplaced confidence in military strength rather than a dependence on God. And because of this failure in leadership, a devastating plague swept across the land. The consequences were absolutely severe. Thousands perished, and David was just overcome with grief. Realizing his massive mistake, David pleads for mercy, basically begging that the punishment fall on him instead of his innocent people. And God hears his repentance, prompting the prophet Gad to tell the king to go build an altar.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Think about the specific location God chose for this altar. He didn't pick a mountaintop, or a fancy palace courtyard, or even a previously known sacred site. No, he chose the threshing floor of a Jebusite named Araunah. This was literally just an ordinary working place where grain was separated from chaff. It was just a dusty piece of land owned by an ordinary working-class guy. Yet this was the exact, specific place God chose as the setting where his judgment would give way to mercy.
Moving right along to Section 2, the threshing floor meeting.
Let's zoom in closely for a second. We're going from that massive macro crisis down to this micro encounter on a dusty floor. Just imagine the scene. You are Araunah. You're out there working your field, and suddenly the king of Israel just shows up at your property right in the middle of a national plague. Now, Araunah didn't put his guard up or try to aggressively protect his property rights. His reaction was immediate respect and total humility. And David, instead of just seizing the land like an ancient monarch typically would do, he just plainly explained his mission. He told him he needed to buy the threshing floor to build an altar to the Lord, hoping it would finally stop this deadly plague.
Which brings us to Section 3, Araunah's astonishing generosity.
Araunah's response to the king's request is honestly nothing short of breathtaking. The guy didn't even hesitate. First, he offers the highly valuable threshing floor completely free of charge. But he doesn't stop there. He also offers his oxen for the sacrifice. Now, to put that into perspective for us today, that's kind of like a farmer just handing over the keys to his brand new John Deere tractor for free. These oxen were essential for his livelihood and his daily work. And lastly, he even offered the wooden yokes and the threshing sledges to be used as firewood for the altar. He was literally giving away the tools of his daily labor. Araunah wasn't just offering his leftovers or whatever he had extra lying around. He was offering the very resources that sustained his life and his family's future in one totally comprehensive, generous gesture.
So what's the big takeaway here? Well, the crucial point is that Araunah's generosity flowed from a heart completely willing to place God's purposes above his own personal possessions. He teaches us that generosity fundamentally reflects our trust in God. It's a great reminder that what we possess is ultimately just entrusted to us for higher purposes. By giving away his livelihood so freely, Araunah beautifully demonstrated that an open hand truly reveals an open heart.
Now let's flip the script a bit in Section 4, David's costly sacrifice.
You see, the story doesn't end with the gift. It would have been incredibly easy for David to just say, "Awesome, thank you, I'll take it." But instead, David refuses the free gift and absolutely insists on paying the full price. Why? Because David understood something really profound. He knew that if he accepted the land and the animals without cost, the physical altar might still get built, but his own personal repentance would remain completely incomplete.
David's response to Araunah has echoed through history. He says this, "I will not offer burnt offerings to the Lord my God that cost me nothing." Let that sink in for a second. With those words, David revealed a really profound truth about the nature of worship. Genuine worship actually requires personal sacrifice.
An offering loses so much of its deep meaning when it demands absolutely nothing from the giver. Look, sacrifice isn't about buying God's favor. His grace can't be purchased, obviously. But sacrifice demonstrates the real sincerity of our love, our gratitude, and our repentance.
And this is just a brilliant illustration of how these two seemingly competing virtues actually align perfectly. On one side, we have Araunah, overflowing generosity without reservation. On the other side, we have David, a deep commitment to meaningful sacrifice. These two men did not diminish each other's faith at all. In fact, they complemented one another perfectly. Araunah shows us the immense beauty of an open hand, while David shows us that true devotion really cannot be separated from personal cost. When giving requires us to surrender our comfort, our convenience, or our security, it becomes a true expression of wholehearted devotion.
All right, let's look at the big picture in Section 5, the legacy of sacred ground.
Zooming back out, we can really see the macro-historical impact of this singular moment. The immediate aftermath was exactly what David had been hoping for. He insists on paying the full price for the property and the oxen. The altar gets built, the sacrifice is made, and the plague stops immediately. God's mercy fully prevailed over judgment.
But the incredible significance of this place definitely didn't end on that day. In a stunning historical twist, according to biblical tradition, this exact same site, this dusty, completely ordinary threshing floor, became the location where David's son Solomon would later build a magnificent temple in Jerusalem. Let that blow your mind for a second. The exact place where an ordinary man demonstrated immense generosity and a king demonstrated sacrificial worship became the absolute center of Israel's worship for generations to come. What appeared to be a simple, ancient real estate transaction literally became sacred ground.
And finally, Section 6, Timeless Lessons for Today. So how does this ancient intersection of generosity and sacrifice actually apply to you and me right now? I mean, our modern world is constantly celebrating accumulation, comfort, and self-interest, right? We're always told to gather more and aggressively protect what's ours. But the lesson of Araunah's floor challenges all of that. It invites us to hold our possessions loosely and to practice wholehearted devotion. The decisions made by two faithful men echoed through history in ways neither of them could have ever imagined at the time. Generosity blesses others, and sacrifice honors God. When those two qualities meet, lives are changed, communities are strengthened, and history takes a completely different course.
Look, you're probably never going to own a threshing floor, and you may never need to build a literal altar, but you have endless opportunities for quiet faithfulness, a generous gift, an unexpected act of kindness, a sacrifice made quietly for God's glory, a decision to obey when absolutely no one is watching. We honestly drastically underestimate the impact of seemingly ordinary acts of faithfulness. But God delights in using ordinary moments to accomplish extraordinary purposes. Your everyday quiet choices can become the very places where blessings unfold and outlast your own lifetime.
I want to leave you with a final thought today. Think about your own life, your time, your resources, and your talents. Are you just giving what's convenient, or are you truly offering your very best? The next time you have an opportunity to give, I want you to remember Araunah's open hands. And when you come to worship, remember David's conviction that some gifts are simply too sacred to offer without personal cost. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.